There are moments in life that divide everything into two parts: the life you thought you were going to have, and the life you're forced to live instead. For me, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, carrying a cardboard box filled with everything I had left from my office: a coffee mug, a family photo, 2 notebooks, and a framed Employee of the Year award that suddenly felt like a cruel joke. The security guard at the front entrance nodded sympathetically as I walked past him. He had probably watched dozens of people leave that building exactly the way I was leaving. But when it's your turn, you don't feel like one of many. You feel like the only person in the world whose life just collapsed. My name is Ethan Carter. I was 33 years old. For almost 9 years, I worked as a senior project manager for one of the largest technology companies in the city. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting, but it was stable. The paycheck arrived every 2 weeks without fail. My wife, Claire, and I had built our entire life around that stability. A modest 3-bedroom house, a reliable SUV, weekend dinners at our favorite Italian restaurant, summer vacations at the lake. Nothing extravagant. Just comfortable. I honestly believed comfort would last forever. Then the company announced a restructuring. At first, nobody panicked. Rumors spread every year. Most of them turned out to be nothing. People laughed about it around the coffee machine. We're too valuable. They'd never cut our department. We survived the last layoffs. I laughed too. Looking back, confidence is dangerous when it's based on things you can't control. 3 weeks later, an email appeared on my screen. Mandatory meeting, human resources. 2 p.m., just 4 words. They changed everything. I already knew. Everyone knew. Nobody called it what it was. But everyone understood. I walked into the conference room, 2 HR representatives, my department director, a folder, a sealed envelope. They looked uncomfortable. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Ethan," my director began quietly, "this isn't about your performance." Funny how every layoff starts with exactly the same sentence. It isn't about performance. If performance didn't matter, then what did? The explanation continued. Budget reductions, economic uncertainty, corporate restructuring, global market conditions. Words. Just words. None of them changed the fact that I no longer had a job. When they finished speaking, they slid the envelope across the table. 8 weeks of severance pay, health insurance for 3 months, career counseling services. As if any of that could replace the identity I'd spent nearly a decade building. I shook everyone's hand, because that's what adults do. Then I walked back to my desk, packed my belongings into a cardboard box, ignored the sympathetic looks, ignored the awkward silence, ignored the coworkers pretending not to stare. The elevator ride down to the lobby lasted maybe 40 seconds. It felt like 40 years. Outside, rain poured across the parking lot. I stood there for nearly 5 minutes, not because I couldn't walk, because I didn't know where to go. Home. Eventually, I had to go home. Claire was sitting at the kitchen island when I opened the front door. She looked up from her laptop, smiled, then saw the box in my hands. Her smile disappeared instantly. What happened? I couldn't answer right away. My throat tightened. I got laid off. Silence. She blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" "The company's cutting hundreds of positions. They eliminated mine." She stood slowly, walked toward me, wrapped her arms around me. For a moment, everything felt okay. "We'll figure it out," she whispered. "We always do." Those words became my lifeline. For the next few weeks, I believed them. Every morning, I woke up at 6, showered, put on a button-down shirt, sat at my desk, applied for jobs, 10 applications, sometimes 20, customized resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn messages, networking events, recruiters, anything. I treated finding a job like it was my full-time job. Claire supported me at first. She'd bring me coffee, encourage me after rejection emails, remind me that companies would be lucky to hire me. "You'll find something soon." "I know you will." I believed her. Then weeks turned into months. Interviews came, but offers didn't. Every company wanted someone younger, cheaper, or already employed. Funny how employers love experience until they have to pay for it. Our savings began shrinking. Mortgage, insurance, utilities, groceries, car payments. Every bill became another reminder that unemployment isn't just losing income. It's watching your future disappear one payment at a time. Claire started working longer hours. She was a marketing manager. Her salary covered most of our essentials, but not all of them. She came home exhausted. Dinner conversations changed. At first, "How was your interview?" Later, "Did anyone call today?" Eventually, "You applied for how many jobs?" The questions weren't cruel, not yet, but they carried something new: frustration. One evening, I overheard her talking to her older sister, Melissa. I wasn't trying to listen. I'd gone upstairs to grab a charger. Their voices drifted through the hallway. "I don't know how much longer I can do this." Melissa asked something I couldn't hear. Claire sighed. "I feel like I'm carrying everything." Another pause. "I know it's not his fault." Then, the sentence that stayed with me for years. "I just don't recognize him anymore." I quietly walked back downstairs, never letting her know I'd heard. That night, neither of us slept much. By month 5, everything felt different. The warmth in our home had quietly disappeared, not through one giant argument, through hundreds of tiny disappointments. She stopped asking about interviews. I stopped talking about rejections. Silence became easier. One Saturday, I suggested we go for a walk, like we used to. She stared at her phone. "I'm tired." Maybe she was. Maybe that wasn't the real reason. I sat on the porch alone, watching children ride bicycles down the street, watching neighbors mow their lawns, watching ordinary lives continue. It's strange. The world doesn't stop when yours falls apart. 3 days later, I received another rejection. "We've decided to move forward with another candidate." I laughed, actually laughed, not because it was funny, because disappointment had become so predictable. It almost felt routine. That evening, Claire came home unusually late. She placed her purse on the table, didn't kiss me, didn't ask how my day was. She stood there for nearly a minute, looking at the floor. Then she said, "We need to talk." 4 words. Somehow, even worse than the HR email. I knew. Deep down, I already knew. She sat across from me, hands folded tightly together, eyes red, as if she'd already cried before coming home. I've been thinking about this for months. Every sentence felt like another brick falling from the ceiling. "I don't think we're happy anymore." I tried speaking. Nothing came out. She continued, "I can't keep living like this." My heart pounded so loudly, I barely heard the next sentence. "I think we should get a divorce." Time stopped. Not metaphorically. It honestly felt like the room had frozen. The refrigerator hummed quietly. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. A clock ticked somewhere in the living room. Everything sounded painfully clear, except my own thoughts. Finally, I managed one question. "Is this because I lost my job?" She didn't answer immediately. That silence hurt more than any words ever could. When she finally looked at me, tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's not just the job." But she paused. Everything changed after that. I searched her face for hope, for hesitation, for anything that suggested we could fix this. Instead, I saw exhaustion, The kind that doesn't happen overnight. The kind that builds slowly, until love can no longer carry its weight. "I still care about you," she whispered. "But I don't think I can keep waiting for the man you used to be." Those words shattered something inside me, because I hadn't stopped being that man. I was still him. I was simply a man who had lost his job. Nothing more, nothing less. Yet somehow, to the person who once promised to stand beside me through every season of life, that was enough to make me feel like a stranger. She slid a large envelope across the table. I looked down. Legal papers, divorce documents, already prepared, already signed, which meant she hadn't made this decision today. She'd made it weeks ago, maybe months, while I was still believing we were fighting together. She had already started planning how to leave. I picked up the papers. My hands trembled so badly, I could barely hold them. And in that moment, I realized something even more painful than losing my career. I hadn't just lost my job. I was about to lose the only person I believed would stay, no matter what. People always imagine divorce as one dramatic moment. A screaming match, doors slamming, someone throwing dishes across the room. For us, it was almost silent, and somehow, that made it hurt even more. I stared at the papers for what felt like an hour. The words blurred together. Petitioner, respondent, division of assets. Legal language has a strange way of making heartbreak sound like paperwork. Claire didn't rush me. She simply sat across the table, quietly crying. Neither of us wanted this conversation, but only one of us had already accepted the ending. Finally, I looked up. Was there someone else? She immediately shook her head. No. So, you just stopped loving me? Her eyes filled with tears again. I never stopped loving you. Then why? She covered her face with both hands. Because love isn't the only thing a marriage needs. Her answer hit harder than if she had screamed. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That couples were supposed to fight through difficult seasons. That vows actually meant something. Instead, I simply asked, so all those promises, for better or worse? She looked at me for a long time, then whispered, I thought I was stronger. That sentence echoed inside my head for years, not because it excused anything, because I believed she was telling the truth. The divorce became official 6 weeks later. No courtroom drama, no custody battle. We never had children. Sometimes I wondered whether that made things easier, or infinitely sadder. The judge spent less than 10 minutes reviewing our case. 10 minutes. 9 years of marriage. Reduced to 10 minutes. When we walked outside, Claire stopped beside her car. I hope one day you understand. I forced a smile. I hope one day I don't have to. She nodded slowly. I really do want you to be happy. I almost laughed. Happy? At that moment, I couldn't even imagine tomorrow. She climbed into her car, started the engine, then drove away. I watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. I didn't know it then, but it would be exactly 5 years before I saw her again. Selling the house felt worse than signing the divorce papers. Every room held a memory. The kitchen where we danced while making dinner. The living room where we watched terrible movies every Friday night. The spare bedroom we'd planned to turn into a nursery someday. Dreams don't disappear overnight. Sometimes they stay behind, like ghosts. I packed everything into cardboard boxes. Some things I sold. Some things I donated. One thing I couldn't throw away. Our wedding album. I held it for nearly an hour, page after page. 2 people smiling as if nothing could ever separate them. Family cheering. Friends laughing. My father giving a speech. Claire wiping away happy tears. It looked so real. because it had been real. People always ask, how can love disappear? The truth is, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes life simply crushes it under the weight of fear. I placed the album in a storage box, closed the lid, and promised myself I would never open it again. My new apartment wasn't much, a tiny one-bedroom above an old bakery. The walls were thin, the pipes rattled every morning, the elevator barely worked, but it was affordable. That word, affordable. Funny how quickly your standards change. The first night, I slept on an air mattress. The apartment echoed because there was almost no furniture. At around 2 in the morning, I woke up instinctively. For a brief second, I reached toward the other side of the bed. Empty. That's when it truly hit me. There was no one there. There would never be anyone there again. I buried my face in the pillow, and for the first time since losing my job, I cried. Not quietly, not politely. I broke. Completely. The following months blurred together. Morning, coffee, job applications, rejections. Repeat. Every rejection email sounded exactly the same. We appreciate your interest. We've chosen another candidate. We wish you success. Eventually, I stopped reading past the first sentence. My savings disappeared. The severance package was long gone. I sold my watch, then my camera, then my motorcycle. Each sale felt like another piece of my identity disappearing. One afternoon, I checked my bank account. After paying rent, I had just $43 left. 43. I remember staring at the screen, thinking, so, this is what rock bottom looks like. The next morning, I swallowed my pride. I walked into a neighborhood grocery store. A handwritten sign hung in the window. Now, hiring the manager looked over my resume. He frowned. You're overqualified. I know. You'll leave as soon as you find something better. I probably will. He appreciated the honesty. You really need this job? I looked him in the eyes. I need to eat. He hired me on the spot. Minimum wage, night shift, stocking shelves, cleaning aisles, moving heavy boxes. At 34 years old, after managing million-dollar projects, I was stacking cereal boxes at 2 in the morning. The first week was brutal. My back ached constantly. My hands cracked from opening cardboard. Customers barely looked at me. Some even treated me as if I were invisible. Customers barely looked at me. Some even treated me as if I were invisible. One evening, an old client walked into the store. He recognized me instantly. Ethan, I smiled awkwardly. Hey, what are you doing here? I shrugged. Working. His smile faded. Oh. He grabbed his groceries, said he was in a hurry, and left. Not because he was cruel, because people don't know what to say when they see someone who has fallen. One night, around closing time, an elderly janitor named Frank sat beside me during our break. Frank had worked there for nearly 15 years. He couldn't have earned much, yet he always smiled. Always. He opened his lunchbox, split his sandwich in half, and handed me one piece. You look like you skipped dinner. I'm okay. He pushed it toward me anyway. Pride doesn't fill your stomach. I accepted. We ate in silence. After a few minutes, he asked, So, what did you do before this? I told him. Everything. The layoffs, the divorce, the endless interviews, the failures. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded thoughtfully, then said something I have never forgotten. Ethan, never confuse where you are with who you are. I looked at him. He continued, A job isn't your identity. A paycheck isn't your value. And another person's decision doesn't define your future. I wanted to believe him, but I didn't. Not yet. Over the next few weeks, Frank became my closest friend. He never gave long speeches, just small pieces of wisdom. One night, he pointed toward the shelves we'd stocked. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "People think success moves in straight lines. It doesn't. It moves like stairs. You climb. You stop. You fall. You climb again." He smiled. "The only people who never reach the top are the ones who stop climbing." I thought about those words all night. That weekend, instead of watching television, instead of feeling sorry for myself, I opened my old laptop. It took nearly 5 minutes to start. The screen flickered. The battery barely worked, but it still turned on. I searched. Free programming courses. Hours passed. Then midnight. Then 2 in the morning. For the first time in almost a year, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I could become. I didn't know it yet, but that old laptop would eventually change my entire life. And 5 years later, it would lead me to sit across a polished conference table, looking into the eyes of the woman who once believed my story had ended. Only this time, she wouldn't be my wife. She would be the person deciding whether I deserved the biggest opportunity of my life. People often say, "Everything happens for a reason." I used to hate hearing that, because when you're standing in the middle of your life falling apart, there doesn't seem to be any reason good enough. Losing my job wasn't a lesson. Losing my marriage wasn't a blessing. It was pain. Plain and simple. But pain has a strange way of introducing you to a version of yourself you never knew existed. Every night after my grocery store shift, I came home around 3 in the morning. Most people would collapse into bed. Instead, I opened that old laptop. The fan sounded like it was about to explode. The screen froze every few minutes. Sometimes the internet disconnected without warning. None of that mattered, because for the first time in nearly a year, I had something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I started with free coding tutorials. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. At first, nothing made sense. Lines of strange symbols, curly braces, functions, variables, errors. So many errors. I couldn't even make a button change color without breaking everything else. One night, after 6 straight hours, I finally got a simple web page to display my name in blue letters. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Anyone else would have laughed at how tiny that achievement was. To me, it felt like climbing Mount Everest, because it proved something. I could still learn. I wasn't finished. Weeks became months. Months became almost a year.